Well, I interviewed the guy, the green soldier in Tunisia, and I worry about him. You know, he revealed that he's taking someone to a hospital, and I'm sure that anyone in a hospital with any form of surgery is going to have a chip put in them, so they're bugged and tagged forever, and, you know, just a vehicle taking someone to the hospital, you know, will have a little magnetic gizmo attached to it, and it's monitored from then on. I think a lot of what went wrong is an unawareness of the sophistication of the, well, call them Western intelligence agencies. Certainly there's an iron grip that we're living through, and these people probably accustomed to more freedom and less surveillance and interference. I call it a Jewish thing. I mean, we're certainly living through untold surveillance, cameras, microphones. Anyway, living through a lot. Well, you might actually live in the West and say, well, you know, you're not harassed, and there's a fair bit of freedom, but you probably adhere to the demands made upon you, which is don't voice too much opposition to alcohol, be pro-homosexual, and subscribe to this obsessive fanaticism of making money from money. That's the real Jewish world, is printing the fiat money and charging interest on it. It's just a factory, the paper's printed, and of course all the bad guys have offered alternatives to the Fed as the reserve currency of the world. Stalin, in fact, pulled out of Bretton Woods. Saddam Hussein said he'd take euros and not dollars for the oil, and Gaddafi was proposing his gold dinar. Well, there's also social concerns and intentions in all this. Our Prime Minister, who's just overseen the killing of thousands of Libyans, and before that Afghanis, or still Afghanis, and also in Iraq, he's just the last few days informed Ghana that if it wants foreign aid, it must be nicer to homosexuals. This is so there's the money, usury, interest angle, and there's also the social engineering, and the two run together. And in fact, through the financial institutions, you can be a police force. You know, you encourage, some are able to make money and some are not, or you even do an insurance job on people. If you own the insurance companies, they're your police force. So we're not only stuck with uniform and plainclothes police, but we've got the financial institutions to ensure the well, call it social engineering needs. I figure, you know, Judaism's actually a romantic religion, and unfortunately it's been used inversely. I mean, these people in the Gulf, like Qatar, who's just assisted the whole Zionist West in bombing Arabs it doesn't know and putting troops on the ground there. I mean, the Gulf countries, you know, there's quite a few ships in the Gulf, pleasure ships, and they're owned by Israelis. And this is probably how they're controlling these little Gulf Emirates. And similarly, you know, for any kind of dissident voice, you get a group of Jews, probably with a religious background, who ensure that all connections and contacts and social relationships are betrayed and corrupted. The fiat money system breaks down any natural order of things, breaks down any tradition, because everyone is accountable to the private bank that is supplying the money. So the old, like tribes with a tribal leader, or family with the head of a family, it's all broken down. And I guess, you know, that's part of our benefit society, that we're just answerable to the people that print the money. So there's a lot more to this that we're never told about, so there's a little bit of a guessing game involved in it all. But Imran Hussein, a very clever man, and he just made a video pointing out how power moves from one country to another, how it moved from Britain to America, and really how Zionist control came during the First World War, which created the Balfour Declaration. and allowed for American assistance to save Britain from the war, but also the transfer of power moved over there. And he says the next step is the transfer of power from from America to Israel. And Israel will go for its greater Israel, which I never really took it at face value, from the Nile to the Euphrates, but he figures troops in Libya will create a pincer movement on Egypt, and so that Israel can become greater Israel. He was pretty convincing. But there's 50,000 U.S. troops due to leave Iraq in the next month or so, and I vividly recall when the British troops were removed from Iraq, and all the newspaper headlines were mission accomplished, and British troops are great, and then they were immediately deployed to Afghanistan, and they went and killed Afghanis. That's what they do. So these 50,000 American troops leaving Iraq, I think it's a red alert as to where they're going to go and what they're going to do. I read up on that Emir of Qatar, in Wikipedia. He did his training in a British military institution, and wonder what makes him tick to send planes over to kill fellow Arabs and Muslims who did nothing wrong to him. But there he is. You can see him with Israeli ministers, and he flies over to Iran. So that's the state of capitalism, that these anomalies can even appear. But it would seem the Third World War gets closer and closer. I didn't touch on all this hype about attacking Iran. I think it's hype. I don't think it would be played out the way it's being played out with public statements by Israeli ministers. I think it's a distraction, but I definitely think there's a war brewing. There's going to be a lot more killing ahead of us. Anyway, there's some demos in Britain. I'm gonna go check it out. I think it's like a Walt Disney Arab Spring, but that doesn't mean it couldn't get serious. It could. But I figure these Occupy movements have been to distract us from the genocide that we've been performing in Libya. It takes the headlines, but games get real. It could get out of hand. I kind of doubt it. Well, there was nothing going on in Trafalgar Square, so on my way to another place, I am passing by where Yvonne Fletcher died. She was outside the Libyan embassy, and they said that she was shot from a Libyan diplomat, or at least from the Libyan embassy. But in 1984 we had no internet. We had maybe 6 major newspapers in Britain, probably 2 TV channels, and that was it. No one questioned. No one thought about false flags or anything like that. So here she rests, and who knows what the true story was.
Have you heard the one about the good Jew? Aren't you tired of it? If there's some bad Jews, it just means take the whole thing down. They never identify themselves, and enough is enough. So forget the line about the good Jew. And all this anti-Zionism and a lot of the anti-Jewishism is just to reinforce the identity. And the identity itself is highly suspect. Very few Jews can trace their heritage. And that's that's the essence of it all. The notion that it's in the genes. There's a cultural identity which has basically been ruined. There was a Yiddishkeit in Eastern Europe. Isaac Bolshevik Singer, there were people you could have been proud of. It's all history. Now, it's the most brutal force on earth. It needs to be dissolved. And it's full of false lies, intimidation, threats, and myths. And you tell one lie, and you need 100 more to cover it. You tell one myth, and you need 100 more to cover it. They print the money, and it's nice to get a little bit. But it's a heavy price to pay to have a total false sense of identity and the world. It's a waste of a lifespan.